Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Anything Goes with Anna Rose. I am riding solo again today, and I am absolutely loving having these conversations with you. It's so funny because for a very long time on Anything Goes, it was just me having one-on-one intimate conversations, coaching conversations with you, and then I found some phenomenal guests and wanted to bring you more guests. And now I feel like it's tilted very much towards it's more of an interview style podcast than me coaching. And the feedback I have had the last couple of weeks with the solo episodes they have been some of your favorites and more of these. So I am absolutely doing my best to make sure that I give you a really good mix on the podcast with incredible guests and me solo having these chats with you. So let's dive into today. It's a conversation that I cannot wait to have. I feel like it is one that I am the most unfortunately and wildly not capable, but like qualified is the word I'm looking for, qualified to have. And it is all around the cost of being liked. And honestly, if I had to put your lack of success and your greatest fear, truly, if you honestly looked at it on paper, it's this. It is the fear of not pursuing who you wish to be, not saying what you mean, not meaning what you say, not pursuing your own life like your life depends on it, because you're so terrified of what people, quote unquote, who the fuck are those people anyway, right, will say. And it could be a mother-in-law, it could be a partner, it could be a neighbor, it could be a best friend, it could be a group of friends, it could be your workplace, it could be potentially your community. It's this fear of, oh my God, what if I said what I really meant? And what if I meant what I really said? And what if I just was fully unadulterated myself? Imagine what I might lose, right? Or like imagine what will happen, or what will those people say? And without a shadow of a doubt, the number one question that I get, but just irregardless of the fact that I know this as the most deepest truth, I know the thing holding you back from your life, your most abundant, most phenomenal, most outstanding life right now is this fear. And so we're going to talk about it today. I'm going to talk about the cost that it's essentially costing you to stay where you are and to be palatable instead of just being wickedly, wildly, beautifully, passionately yourself. Now, there's a saying that I always say, and it's truly something that I live, breathe, and die by. And it is the one that says, I very long ago stopped being addicted to applause and crippled by the booze. I stopped being addicted to the applause and crippled by the booze. And I feel like the truest, deepest, most magnetic power in life, and this could be wrong, but this is just my own experience, is sincere neutrality. And what do I mean by that? I feel like this with money, right? I am very neutral to money, and that's a very powerful place to be. I can see, numbers on a screen, 7 figures or 6 figures or multiple 6 figures in any week or month or year, etc. And I know this might sound wild, but I genuinely feel nothing, right? I'm not addicted to money. I'm not addicted to anything really, but I'm addicted to life. But there's a real peace that I live with because I just have a real sense of neutrality towards money. And it's the exact same thing when it comes to likability, right? So as much as people are like, who gives a fuck about what people say about you, right? And dance to the beat of your own drum and all of these things, there's still this element and thread that runs through society, I feel like, where actually, yes, they might have nailed that piece. They might have nailed the thing about saying what they mean and meaning what they say and being able to show up very, very authentically. And actually underneath all of that, there's still this addiction to applause. So realistically, they're still actually more so chasing an algorithm or, a reel popped off and they acted a certain way or said a certain thing. And actually it's not their entire personality, but it becomes their entire personality because they got addicted to the applause of it. They got addicted to the virability of it. They got addicted to the status that it kind of gave them online, for example. So when I am talking to you today about the cost of likability, essentially the cost of being liked, I I really mean it on both those fronts. So not just letting go of the shackles of being scared about what people say about you, but also not ever becoming addicted to being liked either, right? Actually not being addicted to applause or crippled by the booze. It's having a neutrality in between all of that to know who you are, trust who you are, back who you are, and love who you are. And that is everything that I teach in Self-Love School, of course. So if you did want to dive deeper on this, I would highly recommend getting on the waitlist and coming and join me for a class. Now, I have my laptop. It's a real beautiful anchor for me these days to try and get out shorter, sharper episodes and not go on full tangents, as I am iconically known for. So let's talk about number one. Number one, you swallow your truth. So the cost of being liked, I just want to reiterate that. We're going to talk about the cost of being liked. And the first cost, right, of being liked is you swallow your truth to keep the peace. Now, this is an enormous one. And I wanted to paint that big contextual picture at the beginning because I wanted you to understand that swallowing your truth to keep the peace goes both ways. It's that, you could swallow your truth because you don't really want to say that antagonist truth or that thing that your community might not like, but actually it is your deepest truth because you want to be liked by them. You're addicted to the applause. Or you don't want to say it because you're actually really scared what they will say, right? You want to be palatable. So you sit in that palatable range. So using myself as a really, really great example in this with swallowing your truth to keep the peace, I will never forget, the story goes, I don't know how many months into Convid it was. It was a couple, I'm pretty sure, maybe like a couple of weeks. I genuinely cannot remember. I could go back. I remember it was a particular triathlon. Convid had just kicked off. Melbourne was already starting to appear that it was going to be not the best city to be in during that time. And I remember I had just done a triathlon. I was in the bath. I was drinking my bottle of Verve, ready for my KFC later. That was my triathlon treat. And I remember being in the bath and I was on my phone and I saw a post about this tower getting locked down in Melbourne. Now, you got to remember that this was before I had spoken up at all in that period. This was before I had said a peep, essentially. And I was incredulous. I was like, excuse me, pardon me, what? A tower? Regardless of who was in it, it was predominantly migrants and non-English speaking, right? And I was just and they were getting locked down because a case had spread and so they wanted to lock the whole tower down. Now, this was very early days. For some Melbourneian listeners, this is going to cause PTSD. I apologize. But I'm using this as the greatest, deepest, biggest example because it truly is. And I remember I immediately went to the legislation. I immediately went to the state of emergency powers that all states had recently legislated across the states once Convid had hit. And I quickly read because it was quite quick, quickly read the emergency state powers. And also something had been released that day by the Premier, Daniel Andrews, about the powers that he had given himself to do something like this. Anyway, and in those powers, I read very clearly that they needed written notice in their own language, 24 hours, all these things that they were not being given at that point in time as it was getting reported. And I remember running downstairs naked, right? At this point, I'd just come out of a bath and saying to Morgan at the time, incredulous, I was pacing, dripping water everywhere in the kitchen. And I was just they can't do this. This is so illegal. It is so wrong, rah, rah, rah. And I just will never forget, Morgs was leave it. Leave it alone. Narrator, she did not leave it alone. But I will say he had really good points at the time. He said, look, you don't want to cause this fuss. You don't want to cause this attention. You don't want to bring heat towards you. Why would you want to speak up about this? Now, I want to reiterate because I was the known voice during that time. You have to remember this was before I had said anything, right? And so there was no telling what was to come, essentially. I suppose Morgs had a hunch, but he was just whatever you do, basically keep the peace. Right? Don't rock the fucking boat, Anna. I feel like my middle name is Rock the fucking boat. So I just was Absolutely not. There's just no way that I'm going to swallow the truth. And it doesn't even need to be the truth. It can just be your truth in that moment to keep any peace. Anyway, the story goes, I did not swallow I did not swallow the truth to keep the peace. I absolutely began that day, moments later, in my stories. And I basically had said at the time, if anyone has any contacts in that tower, I've just read the state of emergency powers. What is occurring is illegal. Get me someone's information in that tower because they need to take this screenshot, give them this screenshot down to the police and walk past them because they are legally allowed. Anyway, I shared that. That was the beginning of my dog in the fight for COVID. I get asked that all the time. How did that viralness of that time blow up for you? And I was like, that was the moment. That actually was the moment that my dog became in the fight. But at the time, I want to tell you, at the time when this was happening, this was very early days. You have to understand, and this is such an extreme example, because at the time, most people were still terrified of this virus. I was certainly not. I just thought it was all a joke, which got proven right. It just didn't pass, as Candace said, the sniff test for me from the beginning. And I spoke up regardless of keeping the peace. I spoke up regardless of likability. I spoke up whether people were going to like me, hate me. I just knew that it was wrong and I was going to say something. And I remember at the time, Morgan, and he relentlessly tried to shut me up for the entire time that I spoke up, which was a massive source of contention in the relationship, of course. But I remember constantly thinking, the cost of this, right? And he had said at the time, so that's where I was going. He had said at the time, like, the risk of this, the risk of speaking up is so great, right? The risk of exposing yourself and talking about all of this is so large. Why would you do it? And I was like, because I don't give a fuck about any of that, right? Like, I'm always just going to speak the truth, or my truth at the very least. And it's exactly what I did, and it's exactly how, the consequent 18 months went. But this point, the cost of being liked, when you swallow your truth to keep the peace, it is costing you far, far, far more than you realize. Now, the cost of me not swallowing my truth to keep the peace ended up being the greatest thing that I ever did in my entire life, because it led to literally where I am today. Now, I got deplatformed at that time, right? Eventually, I got deplatformed. I lost my original profile of 70,000 people. COVID was a really perfect storm in Morgan and I's relationship as well, to realize how different values we had become, which was so powerful. And that's where all the Come to Jesus talks had occurred as well. So not the cost of being liked for me, right? So instead of being like, yeah, you're right, it's going to cost me too much. I better just shut up and have my bath and say nothing and just be liked instead. But instead, right, and I could have done that, and I would have stayed in a marriage that was wrong. I would have not been able to help hundreds of thousands of people not to put a poison in their body. I would have, and this is an enormous cost. It would have cost me my integrity. It would have cost me my peace. It would have cost me probably several, if not decades more of my life, because I know for a fact my original marriage would have inevitably ended in divorce no matter what, right? And so the cost of being liked in that moment was my entire life, right? So not swallowing my truth to keep the peace, that was a national peace. That is an extreme example. But if I want to make it, so that's the macro. If I want to make it micro for you, you constantly saying like, yes, darling, right? When you actually want to say, get fucked. You not sticking up for yourself in any situation, in your workplace, at your children's school, in a friendship group, just to keep the peace in a extended family, like a in-law family, swallowing your truth just to keep the peace when your standards, your boundaries are being crossed, your standards are being smashed, your values are being questioned, is the fastest way to get sick, have anxiety, and cause absolute misalignment in your life faster than anything. All right, so that's the first piece, right? Point one, you swallow your truth to keep the peace. You will always, I want to end that on saying like, you will always, by not speaking your truth, and hear me well, you're always choosing somebody else's comfort over your integrity, which is blasphemous to me, right? You always want to live in your truth and your integrity. And let me say, why I sleep so well at night is when I give this advice and when I take this advice for myself, and this is how I live, I know in my life it is always coming from a place of purity. It is always coming from a place of, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm just never going to choose your comfort, right? Or your trigger over my integrity ever, right? Your triggers, your comfort, your whatever, your values, that's your responsibility, right? So if you want, well, you're just never going to make me swallow my truth to keep the peace ultimately, ever. And it lends to a really, really, really beautiful life. So that's point one. Point number two, you accept standards you'd never accept for someone you loved. So this is all to say, and it's I see it over and over and over again in questions that I get in self-love school or just in day-to-day life, right? Picture your little girl or your little boy coming to you, or your best friend in the whole world, someone that you genuinely love, or your sister, the person that you love the most, your partner potentially, right? And they come to you and they give you a scenario or a situation, like this person was so rude to me or disrespected me or crossed my boundaries, or you have a standard in your life and you weren't able to uphold it because you had to bend and twist and fit into a certain mold and say certain things to appease this person. Whatever, insert that scenario here, right? That person that you love the most comes to you with that story and you give them phenomenal advice. You say, don't ever fucking do that again. Or next time, do X, Y, Z. Right? You're so incredible at giving advice to the person that you love the most. And yet, when it comes to your own life, you do the exact opposite, right? You bend and you buckle and you bend over backwards to make sure the other person's comfortable, or you shut up when you actually should have said, actually, no, that's not okay. You stay quiet when you should have said anything. You allow yourself to get coerced or gaslit or whatever for the 17th million time because you just didn't have the courage in that moment to stand up for yourself, right? But if a girlfriend had come to you and said, oh my God, XYZ had just done this to me, you would say, fucking leave now. And yet in your own situation and in your own scenario, you're not. So point number two, what it is costing you is you are accepting standards that you would never accept for someone that you loved. It is costing you your peace. It is costing you your livelihood. It is costing you your life. It is costing you love, right? Potentially. So many times I see it. I'm in all those groups. I love them. I've referenced it before on the podcast, but like tea time, what else? Sis, is this your man? And you see girls, women in there share stories and phenomenally, right? They're looking for sisterhood. They're looking for advice. And like I read it and I'm like, how on earth? And trust me, sis, I was there when I was with my fuckhead ex, but I was so aware of it, desperately trying to get out. But I read these things and it's like, how have you even just written that? Like, and the hundreds of comments will jump in and be like, leave him, or what are you doing, or whatever else. And I think, but I wonder if you're doing that in your own life. You're so quick and good to give advice to someone else, but are you actually holding that standard in your life? Are you actually holding that boundary in your life? So the cost of being liked, of swallowing the truth, of being quiet, of saying yes when you really mean no, of sitting down when you want to stand up, of going along with something when you wanted to say fuck no, is allowing your standards to be stood on, beaten down, crossed, when you would never, ever give that advice to someone that you loved the most. All right, point number 3, you explain yourself instead of just deciding. Now, a decision doesn't need an explanation, right? No is a complete sentence. No, thank you. Nope. Full stop, right? You explain yourself instead of just deciding. So the cost of being liked is you are over-explaining yourself instead of just deciding. Now, I will speak for all women here and say we as women, we know the cost of a mental load. It's probably the thing that exhausts me. It's not probably, it's absolutely the thing that exhausts me the most, my mental load, fundamentally. And if I had to spend a minute in my days, and we can do anything, right? The mental load that I carry is just from beautifully owning and running and scaling a lot of businesses, right? That's my mental load. What is not my mental load is I never justify or explain a decision. My decision is my decision. My decision is set, and my decision is made because I'm a woman who knows herself, loves herself, trusts herself, and backs herself. Fact. Full stop. Right? So, and I'm not flaky. I do what I say. I mean what I say. If I say yes, I'm there. If it's in the calendar, I'm there. So this is coming from a woman who doesn't flake on events or doesn't say yes and then decides no at the last minute. I mean, when you have made a decision, if it is a no for an event, for example, and then it's like, I just really can't come because blah, 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 blah. I'm just like, it's going to be a no from me this time, right? Or sounds incredible, but it's just not something that I can come to at this point. Full stop. Right? I don't over-explain. I don't need to over-justify, because over-justifying and over-explaining in our lives is giving a vote to someone to decide in our life that doesn't deserve it. And it's not to say, I mean this for my best friends. I mean this for my husband, right? Your life gets to be your life. Your decisions get to be your decisions. When we over-justify and over-explain instead of just deciding, we are handing our power away 8 times out of 10. I won't say 10 times out of 10. I won't say 9 times out of 10, but 8 times out of 10. The moment you feel that you need to justify or seek approval, worst of all, for a decision that you want to make in your life before you make it, right, is the moment you have genuinely handed someone a vote in your life that didn't necessarily earn it. It's just a big thing for me that as a woman who knows herself, trusts herself, backs herself, and loves herself, I make decisions, and I make them fast. And it is a learned behavior, I feel like. But you explaining yourself instead of just deciding is an enormous cost on your life, right? It is mental load. It is people pleasing, which is the number one killer in my opinion, right? It is time wasting. It is misalignment, because if you're seeking approval and someone's disappointed, and then so you decide against what you were actually going to decide, if you say yes when you were actually really wanted to say no because you sought approval, or what do you think? Or will you be disappointed if I don't come? They probably will be. And also that's their responsibility, right? You don't have to be all the things to everyone all of the time. Fact, right? How fucking exhausting. You get to be a light and a lighthouse and a weapon and anything. You get to be a calm. You get to be whoever you are, but you just need to be that person. And seeking approval on your decisions, right, instead of just deciding, is costing you more than you realize with your mental capacity, with your radiance, especially your radiance, because there becomes resentment in your life, right? If you start seeking approval with anyone, even best friends, even partners, saying, oh, would you be disappointed? And they say yes, and you go, oh, okay, I'll go. You're shit there anyway, right? There's resentment there. You're overstretched. You're overstressed. You're probably overtired. You're overextended. And so you go, but you're not really there, right? Anything and everything I say yes to, it is a whole body yes. Now, sometimes I will, very fucking rarely, I'd have to really think about this, but I will say, I know that I will say yes sometimes, I'm sure, when I don't necessarily really want to go. Not everything in my life is an absolute fuck yes, right? Nine times out of 10, there are some things I know I just have to do, or I just have to go to. But if I'm going to do that, I'm going to make sure that the other 95% of my life is a fuck yes and is exactly what I want it to do. And the gift and the joy in that is that when I'm there because I want to be there, or I'm doing the thing because I want to do it, or I'm actively present because I'm joyfully there. I'm not overextended. Wasn't pressured to be there. I wasn't guilted. Oh my God. I wasn't shamed into being there, right? I'm there because I want to be there, or I'm doing the thing because I want to do the thing, or I've said yes because I really want to say yes because I have capacity and I can, right? We are, as women and a species, the greatest martyrs of our own life and time. And the cost of being liked is literally costing you your radiance, your time, your presence, and your joy. All right, point number 4 of the cost of being liked. You will be punished for finally telling the truth, but you had to tell it anyway, right? The truth will always come out. It's just a matter of time. And when you finally have to tell it, right, and you feel like you lose something, you lose friends, or you lose a role, or you lose, I'm just trying to think, like you lose a friendship, a relationship, you lose status somewhere. You might have been on your kids' school committee and then they learn your kids aren't vaccinated or something like that. And so they strip you of the P&C committee, whatever, right? The truth was always going to come out. So the cost of being liked and not just telling the truth from the start and being who you are will cost you eventually. And this is why it's point number 4. It is the pièce de la résistance. It is the cherry on the top. It is to say that you swallowing your truth will hurt you in the long run anyway, right? And a good friend, a gorgeous friend, she's an American, was sharing on a reel today. She was saying how she loves, this is kind of where it came from. She's like, oh my God, I'm really shocked, especially she's American. So Americans are, I love you guys, but it is just very different. And she said, oh my God, it's so weird seeing, influencers, this trend of just like them telling the truth because they're like, basically they're more scared that it's just going to come out anyway. So she was like, oh, there was this wellness influencer that I follow and she just admitted that she vapes because she was on holiday and like someone saw, she was at this resort and they saw them vaping. And she's a wellness influencer. And she was like, she came out and said it. And my friend was just like, oh, but I find it really like freeing and all this stuff. And I'm like, yes, sis, because the fucking truth's always going to come out no matter what. So you may as well just be who you are from the jump, right? You may as well just say what you want from the jump. And the cost of not is if you swallow what you want to say, and Convert is just such a powerful example of this. I feel like the amount of people that, oh my God, thousands, tens of thousands of people at the time, back in those days, I was getting well over 1,000 messages a day, sometimes 2,000-3,000 messages a day. The common thread throughout all of it was my family don't understand, or my friends don't understand, or my husband doesn't understand. So they're like, it was basically like, you are my safe space and you're making me not feel crazy because I can come here and basically bask in your truth, the truth that, because it didn't have to be the truth at the time. I was just sharing the other side, right? But people just felt less alone. People felt less crazy because they felt like they couldn't have that pertinent conversation in their own homes with the people that potentially they loved the most because of how they would have been treated. Whereas I was just like, I don't give a fuck. Here's what I think. And if you don't like it, beautiful, go over there. Go find people that you do that are going to agree with you, because we don't have to. I will respect you. I always respect your decision. Doesn't mean we have to be friends. Doesn't mean I need you in my life, right? So the cost of being like, point number 4, I just don't want to say say a different version of what I just said. You will be punished for finally telling the truth anyway, right? So you have to do it from the start. The cost of being liked is potentially creating this life and this marriage or this motherhood or this friendship group or this business that you wake up in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years from now, and you don't even fucking recognize yourself because day after day, truth after truth, moment after moment, you just so consistently swallowed the truth of who you are and what you want to say and how you actually wanted to show up in the world because you were so terrified of what someone else would say, when at the end of the day, when it all comes out anyway and you do piss someone off or someone gets upset or offended, they're going to find out regardless because the truth always comes out. The gift, right? The gift in just not being addicted to applause or crippled by the booze is being exactly who you are, radically honest, radically authentic, radically vulnerable in all ways, always, and finding and aligning with a tribe of individuals, humans, people, whatever, aliens, whatever, fairies, right? Right? Ultimately, that actually love and respect you and can see you in all your wholeness and your humanness and your bigness and allow you to take up space exactly as who you are. So, the cost of being liked, as you can hear, as you can tell, is absolutely fucking everything. And at the end of the day, my greatest wish and fear for you is that in 10 years, when you wake up, so my greatest wish is that in 10 years or 5 years or 1 year, you wake up in a life and a body and a relationship with a bank account that you fundamentally recognize and love and you're grateful for. And you know exactly how you got there because you were radically honest and authentic in who you were and how you built it. Versus my greatest fear is the opposite of that, is that in 1, 2, 5, 10 years, you wake up in a body and a bank account and a relationship and in motherhood and in a job or a business that cripples you, that you don't even recognize, that you have no idea how you got there and you can't even remember all the steps where you went wrong to be waking up and not recognize yourself and not even understanding who you are anymore. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the cost of being liked. So my wish for you is that you become a person above all else that knows themselves, trusts themselves, backs themselves, and of course loves themselves. That's it from me for today. But please go out in the world in a big way, in a beautiful way, in an authentic way, in a vulnerable way, in a radically badass way, however it manifests for you in your life. If you're quiet, be quiet. If you're big, be big. If you're bold, be bold. And just be unapologetic about it. That's the main thing. And I will love and leave you. I will see you in next week's episode. But until next time, as always, stay wild.